Welcome to the Brave Space HIPAA training. If you didn't know, HIPAA stands for the Health Information Portability and Accountability Act. It was written in 1996. Up until then, we hadn't had a lot of oversight on who was sharing what kinds of information about our clients. Now we have a lot more oversight and protection for our clients. I'm going to be honest, this is usually the training that everybody rolls their eyes about. And I actually have a pretty solid grasp of HIPAA because I've gone through so many of these trainings. What I'd like to do is share some of my thoughts with you about how we can protect HIPAA here at Brave Space, and we can have a more detailed discussion afterwards about how to do so in our office. So protected health information is any piece of document, information, or language that discloses a piece of information about our client. Generally, the rule of thumb is that two pieces of identifying information put together is health information. So a person's name and their diagnosis, a person's name and their number, a person's number and their diagnosis, or where they live. All of that could be giving somebody in the waiting room enough information to start to know who that person is. As you can see around you, the Brave Space office is built so that there's a lot of openness and community creation between providers and clients. That's very deliberate. We find that it's important to show that kind of community, and there's no real wall between a provider and a client. I think that builds trust. However, it does make it harder for us to protect HIPAA information. Protected health information can be transmitted in a variety of ways. It can be sent via email, by fax, it could be said out loud in the waiting room, it could be said in a team meeting. It could even be sent in the mail. And what's important is protected health information should only be shared on a need-to-know basis. The Brave Space Informed Consent Documents covers all employees of Brave Space to have the ability to see people's protected health information. However, we're not going to disclose it to just anybody in the office. This is a need-to-know basis. So if the front desk person doesn't necessarily need to know that your client just got married, then you don't need to tell them. If the billing officer doesn't need to know that your client's having a more suicidal experience, you definitely don't need to tell them. It's general common knowledge that we should protect information, but why? Why should we protect information? There's several reasons. The first is client safety and security, the ability to have their privacy. Obvious big reason. However, there's some more nuanced reasons as well. It's a key way to keep the trust in your relationship with your client. If they heard you talking about them to another person, that definitely impacts the trust of your relationship. It's a way to minimize discrimination and stigmatization. Many of our clients have had lots of exposure to being talked about, and us limiting how much we talk about them can do one thing to help them know that there's a place they can show up. Another important reason to protect information is that it helps us stay unbiased about our clients. If we hear information said by somebody else, that colors our view of our client, and that can be said for other people as well. And of course, the last reasons are that it is part of our ethical code to protect information, and it also keeps us free and clear of any issues with our board. So let's talk about some of the ways we can protect information. The first and foremost is these wonderful computers we have. All of our HIPAA compliant information needs to be password protected. Usually the rule of thumb is that things need to be protected by two different kinds of locking systems. It can be a physical lock or it can be a password lock. So if you're out in the middle of the office, you can have your computer open and you can be working on it. If you're going to walk away from your computer, definitely shut it. If you have somebody else in the office who can monitor your computer, you can leave it on the table while you go to the bathroom. But if you're going to step into a session or if you're going to leave the office, definitely put your computer back into the locking office box. The same is true with our phones. Our phones have more secure passwords on them to ensure that there's no information that can be seen by other people. We also work hard to never put client information into the contacts with a name. That would be two pieces of identifying information. and we delete voicemails and texts as soon as they have been read and processed. Phones and computers should never be taken off-site. I know that doing paperwork at home is sometimes important. What I would ask is that you use encrypted email to email yourself MHAs or anything you're working on, and use Theranos as well. And you can use those from your home computer as long as you do never save your passwords on your computer. Some nitty-gritties of our day-to-day, we definitely want to log out of emails and of other systems like SR fax and other things that may store client information all the time. As soon as you are done with that computer for the day, log out. Most of these computers may be used by 2 people, so we definitely want to keep your email and your passwords protected. Our fax system, SR fax, is protected by a business associate agreement, which means that the other side of it, the SR fax, has agreed to manage their side so that HIPAA is maintained. However, we do receive a copy of the fax in our email, which is not encrypted. So once you receive that email, download the file, that's the record of the fax, and then delete the email. We use Google for our Gmail accounts, and we also use the Google Drive. I have a business administration account with Google, and they also have a business associate agreement. However, if you are logged in, anybody could look at your email and see a lot of information. So, and it is also true that if you share a link to any document in the Google Drive, it's already on a third-party system and you've just shared HIPAA information. So we ask that nobody share documents across Google Drive except for BraveSpace LLC email accounts. We do use the client files spreadsheet on Google Drive to help share information between office staff. This is one area where I think that we're getting a little bit risky with the HIPAA information, but in order to maintain an adequate system to track all clientele who are entering BraveSpace, there's something that we have to do. So what we ask is that you do not keep a tab of the client file spreadsheet on your computer, that you log in to the Google Drive every single time and then open the document from Google Drive. That will help reduce the risk of it being opened on this computer. If you're ever leaving the common office space, you'll notice that we have protected information nearby in locking filing closets. If you're the last to leave that common area, always check to make sure that the storage office is locked as well as the locking filing cabinet. If you have printed anything or scanned anything, be sure to shred your original document after it's been saved onto your computer. In the office, in team meetings, in the waiting room, we have to do some work to really make sure that our clients' information is safe. So we work really hard to not use client names or identifying information. We use they for a lot of clients just so that we help maintain some privacy and confidentiality around gender. And then if there is any information you have to discuss with another provider, please step into an office room and not share that information in the waiting room space. A really interesting part of HIPAA is that even attending services at BraveSpace is protected information. It's very easy for us to get a phone call from, say, a provider or a parent or somebody who's a friend of a person who's asking, hey, is my person there? Or can I get a confirmation that my person has attended a session? We are not allowed to offer any of that information without a release on file. The best practice for handling that situation is to say, I'm sorry, I can't confirm or deny if that person has been here. If you'd like, I can take a message and forward it on to somebody who might be able to return your call. With releases of information, we make ours expire after a year unless you've indicated otherwise. So do check the date of expiration before you start sending information or talking to a provider. If you are sending information to another provider, be sure to put the ROI along with the fax or the encrypted email. Also, make sure that the fax number and the email are accurate. It's happened once or twice that somebody has put in a number and it's gotten to the wrong department. That technically isn't a HIPAA breach if it's within the same office as the person's medical provider or therapeutic provider, but it is a breach of confidence and trust with the client. BraveSpace backs up all of its important information on a hard drive. That hard drive is also password protected and is kept in a locked area. We also ensure that our computers and our phones have a remote wipe and a Find My Phone function. so that if ever a phone or a computer is lost, we can remove that data remotely. So it's super important for everybody at BraveSpace to track the release of the information. We keep files of everything that we've ever faxed or emailed to a provider, to another person in the person's family or care unit, or to the person themselves. This goes a little bit above and beyond just scheduling emails. If it has any sort of clinical content or has any sort of more pertinent information to a client's case, we will save that email or a record of a phone call in the client's record. We also need to document any sorts of breaches of HIPAA information. That means that if we do lose a phone, or if we do know that our fax went to the wrong person, we have to make a documented case for that happening. The reason that we track all of that information is that the law says that a client has the right to know when their information has been sent to other people. If we don't keep that record, the client will never know what information is out there. So us keeping that document can actually serve the client in having a complete record of how their information was sent. If we have a serious breach of HIPAA, we will be informing the client. And if it's a breach where many people's information was compromised, we have to inform everybody who may have been impacted. So the loss of a computer or the loss of a phone is a serious HIPAA breach. The consequences of such breaches are pretty severe. I mean, the first is that the person's information is out there for the world to use or to access in some way. And that can lead to the identity theft. It can lead to using sensitive information to harm the client and other types of harmful information. It can also lead to a severe loss of trust in our practice or in you. And that, to me, is one of the biggest harms for this person. However, there are bigger penalties to the organization and to you as a practitioner if there's a HIPAA breach. This is definitely something that gets reported to the board, as well as to our Medicaid systems and the people who govern our practice. And the consequences of having a major HIPAA breach are very large. It can be millions of dollars worth in litigation, including things like disciplinary action, termination, and legal penalties. So as you can see, all of us are part of keeping HIPAA information protected. You help, I help, the rest of the organization helps. One of the ways that we do so is to maintain our technology. We do frequent updates so that security pieces are running well. We update passwords regularly, and we also are very cognizant of any sort of like email scams or malicious hardware that's being asked to be downloaded. If you ever receive an email that asks you to download something from the internet that you haven't authorized, do not open the email. Rather, find a supervisor or find your HIPAA compliance officer and tell them that you've had this email. We will work at deleting it promptly so that nothing gets downloaded on your computer. You have a HIPAA compliance officer, and that's me. Hi. So if you have any breaches, if you're suspecting any breaches, if you're unclear, please just let me know. If you are pretty sure that something's been released without authorization, you must report it to me. We need to clearly document that that's happened, and your promptness will help us all remain accountable for our work. If you have any questions about how you can maintain HIPAA and work within this organization, please ask me or ask your clinical supervisor. We are so happy to help. Thanks so much for watching the HIPAA compliance training.